Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blackhawks Banter presented by the Hockey Writers. If you're new, welcome. Our Blackhawks team at thehockeywriters.com comes together weekly to discuss all things Blackhawks. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook so you never miss out on any episode. You can also find all of our articles on thehockeywriters.com. And you can also follow all of us on Twitter. Our usernames are right here by our names on the Zoom screen. And also, you can find all of our podcast or all of our shows on all your favorite podcast platforms as well. So, although it's the off season, there's a lot of managerial choices that we have to start making. So we're gonna play general manager. I'm your host for tonight, Brooke LoFurno, joined by Boysen and Gail Kauchuk. So let's get right to it. So, even though technically the Stanley Cup has not been awarded yet, the rumors have started coming in pretty hot, and the biggest one surrounds Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Seth Jones. He allegedly told Columbus that he would like to test the free agent market after his contract expires next season. So obviously there are many teams that would like to trade for him. And according to The Athletic, the Los Angeles Kings are the early favorites in the trade sweepstakes, but the Montreal Canadiens and our very own Blackhawks are listed as major players. So my question to you guys is, do you want the Hawks to trade for Seth Jones? Greg, I'm going to start with you.
Wanting and can are kind of two different things, but yeah, absolutely. I would love Seth Jones in a Blackhawks uniform. He's another one of those guys that stirs debates depending on if you're a quote unquote eye test guy or you're part of the people that rely on the advanced metrics and analytics. One will say, hey, he's really good. The other, will say, not so good. But listen, he would be a huge improvement to whatever's on the roster right now. He'd be probably the best defenseman we have if we had him. My thing about making a trade for him is he's not going to be cheap. He's going to cost a lot of assets. And he's only signed for a year. So I would only make this deal if you had some sort of pre-conditioned agreement that he's going to re-sign and you're going to get him past this year. Because to give up draft picks and top prospects for 1 year when you're a rebuilding team, quote unquote, it doesn't make any sense. But if you can get him signed for a couple more, 4 or 5 years beyond this upcoming season as your team gets better, then I'm all for it. You got to be careful. He's going to be 27 by the time the season starts. So if that is a thing where he's looking for a long-term deal, you don't want to get yourself right back in another Brett Seabrook kind of situation where you're stuck with a long contract. But that's putting the cart in front of the horse right now. We have to acquire him before we worry about that. But I'm for it if we know it's going to be for beyond just one season.
Gail?
Okay, absolutely. I would have to agree. You don't want to give up. You don't want to give up the farm for just 1 year. So you got to get him to commit to something long term. And I guess what I would add on to Greg is that there's been some talk that Bowman might not want to commit long term. He's got his prospects, and ideally, in a couple years, 1 or 2 of them is going to be a number one defenseman, right? So you might want to put your eggs in that basket. Adam Boqvist, Ian Mitchell, Nicholas Bodine, Wyatt Kalynuk, 1 or 2 of them could be really good in a couple of years. It takes longer for defensemen to develop, and it's definitely that potential is out there. But personally, I think that if Bowman does have the chance to commit to a number one defenseman, somebody that's proven that he really should, if he could make the numbers work. But the commitment has to go both ways. Don't sign Seth Jones unless there's some kind of agreement for a long term or at least a longer term than just a 1 year, so that it's worth it to give up some major assets for him.
Yeah, I see where both of you guys are coming from. My position was, yes, I would like for Stan Bowman to at least try. I know that doesn't mean much. Like if he were to get traded to another team and Stan Bowman said, well, I tried, it just didn't work out. I know that doesn't really mean much, but I would still like to see us try. I mean, I feel like we've kind of seen enough of this musical chairs of defensemen. And like you guys kind of alluded to, we don't exactly know what our defenseman ceilings are going to be. There's just too many questions. And I think adding someone like Seth Jones would give a lot of security and consistency, since there's no consistency whatsoever right now. And I don't know, I think that's really important. And I feel like this is kind of a big opportunity. Not a lot of defensemen like him even are discussed in the trade market because they're usually locked up. So I would like to see us try, and hopefully it works out. And I think it would allow the team to also build a proper defense around someone like him. We finally have that answer of a number one defenseman. So I hope it does work out, or I hope, the cards fall into place, and we'll see what happens.
What happens?
You'll see what happens. So our next topic is about the draft lottery. The draft lottery was held on June 3rd, and unfortunately it wasn't that eventful. It wasn't like a couple of years ago where we jumped to the third spot, and that was really exciting. But the Hawks are going to be choosing at number 11 this summer. So how do you guys feel about that? If you were Bowman, are you interested in trading up, down, or are you staying put? Gail?
Okay, well, the Blackhawks already got their splash of good luck when they jumped from the number 12 spot to the number 3 spot in 2019, and obviously acquired Kirby Dach. So it doesn't surprise me that everything kind of stayed put, and they drafted it at number 11, which is where they were supposed to be. And I also do think that they will stay put with this pick. It might not be as momentous as a 1, 2, or 3 pick, but you can still fetch a pretty quality prospect at number 11. Lucas Reichel was 2020 was selected number 17, and although he's unproven yet in the NHL, people have really high hopes for him. So I think that they could get somebody pretty decent at number 11. Although whoever they do pick, I don't think is going to really affect this upcoming season. So to me, I guess in my head, I'm really just kind of more interested in the offseason trades that Bowman's going to make. We've talked about how he should address some glaring things, the number one defenseman, some more depth at center, maybe even getting a veteran goalie for insurance. So around draft time is when these trades start happening. So I guess I'm kind of excited to see how that's all going to play out.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited too, because there's a lot that can happen. Greg, what about you?
I don't really think Stan's kind of going to go into the draft saying, hey, I'm trading up for sure, or I'm trading down for sure. You kind of got to see how the chips fall and see how the flow goes. This is going to be a very interesting draft because it's wide open. There's no Connor McDavid. There's no Jack Eichel. There's no Austin Matthews. Nobody knows who's even going to be number 1 this year. And the rankings are flipping and flopping as some guys didn't play at all this year or very limited. So you don't know how that round is going to shake out. A guy that you think is going to be there 11 could get picked 2 or 3. You don't know how that goes. So unless there's a guy that they really have their heart set on, and for me, I'm hoping it's goaltender Jasper Wallstedt. I love that kid. He can be the goalie of the future. If he's at 11, take him. I think the stupid Red Wings are going to take him though ahead of us. So if there's a chance where hey, Detroit's going to take him first and you can jump ahead, and that's the guy you want, then I'm okay with that. If you have a guy targeted at 11 and he's gone by the time you have 11, and somebody behind you says, hey, we want to jump up to get our guy, we'll give you, you get to move down 9 picks, but we'll give you an extra 3rd round pick. Then I say you do that too. So it all depends on who they got targeted. Stan kind of seems to go into these drafts with, blinders on for a particular guy or 1 or 2 guys. I think he kind of has his mindset on who he wants, or at least the position he wants. So as guys come off the board, those are when those decisions will get made. So who knows what's going to happen. Me personally, you answer every phone call and you see what's on the board. And if the deal makes sense, then you make a deal.
Yeah, I actually always love draft day for that reason, because even teams that pick below you, some teams start to get desperate and do want to move up and can offer some really good trade packages. So that's what I'm excited about. But, I'm not disappointed that we're picking at 11, so I won't be disappointed if Stan doesn't trade up, because it's not the worst spot to pick, and it's not like we're picking at 24 and we're like, oh crap, we really should trade up for a more elite talent, but I'm okay with it. But in my brain, I'm always looking to trade up if you can to snag the most elite talent this draft can offer. So if that's possible, then I'm all for it, but I'm not disappointed, like I said, either. I think, like Greg said, it looks like this is going to be a really deep draft, and it looks like we have a lot of choices. So that's kind of fun and exciting too. But I just think that the Blackhawks do need to start getting more like franchise altering elite prospects, which is why I'm kind of interested in moving up. But like I said, we'll see. Really, draft day is up in the air for everyone, and things can change in the blink of an eye. So again, I guess we'll see about what's going to happen there. But I actually kind of thought about this when I was thinking of asking you guys. So in your brain, would you use that number 11 pick to acquire someone like Seth Jones? Gail, I'm going to go back to you for this one.
Yeah, again, like I said, if you can get Jones to commit, then it would be worth that number 11 pick. Again, maybe depending upon who's available at number 11, so but yes, I guess I do think that would be worth the sacrifice to get a number 1 defenseman, maybe even Dougie Hamilton. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yes. Greg?
I would think, the draft, it's going to be a crazy couple of days because you're going to have the expansion draft for Seattle, and there's going to be a lot of activity going on there. And then 2 days later is going to be the NHL draft. So there's just going to be a flurry of moves. It's going to be crazy trying to cover it all. But a draft day, if a Seth Jones is going to get moved, draft day is a likely day for it to happen. Not saying it's going to, but that would be a good time. And if there's any deal going to be made, a first round pick is going to be involved. So I would think, would I trade the number 11 pick in the package to get him? Again, based on my previous answer, if we're keeping him, fine. But I don't think there's any way, if the trade's going to happen on draft day, there's no way you can acquire him without giving up that 11th pick. So again, it's going to be what Stan feels, if it's worth it or not, and we'll see. I would just bet anything can happen in these next 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I kind of thought that there is really no way to acquire Seth Jones without a first round pick at least. So I don't mind that actually at all. But like I said, there's a lot of kind of weird stuff involved in there that has to be sorted out first. But like I said, I'm all for it. I'm actually all for that if that happens. But I think in a way though, draft day also kind of scares me because we lost Hjalmarsson and Panarin during the draft week. I know, sorry guys, PTSD. I feel bad bringing that up, but I don't know. So I really hope that we don't get a repeat of these kinds of things, and it's just good moves all around.
The good news is we really don't have any players like that to give up this time around, so we should be okay.
Exactly. That's
we're going to talk. There could be 1 or 2. Anyway, let's move.
Yeah. Not an Artemi Panarin.
Right now, there's no one you'd be interested in. There's no one for any of you. But so here I'm going to talk about, just to remind all of our viewers for our mid-show reminders, you are watching Blackhawks Banter, presented by the Hockey Writers. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook so you never miss an episode of our weekly show. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter. Our usernames are right here on the screens next to our names. And all of our show is also on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And once again, I'm Brooke LoFurno, joined by Greg Boysen and Gail Kauchuk, our full Blackhawks team at the Hockey Writers. So let's get into our fourth topic, which I actually been thinking a lot about, which is Dominik Kubalik. This season was kind of confusing for us and for him because he was bounced around the lineup. His ice time was cut short, and I don't know, he was taken off the first power play unit, and he wasn't as impactful as he was last season, but that's not his fault. It's just because he didn't get the opportunity that he did last season. And at the World Championship, he killed it for the Czech Republic with 3 goals and 3 assists in 7 games, and which seems very normal for him actually, but he seems like he's like in Colleton's doghouse for whatever reason, and I'm kind of worried about him. Do you worry that he is kind of the forward that's finding himself on the outside looking in, Greg?
I certainly hope not. It's going to be a big year for him because he only signed that 2-year bridge deal. So this will be the last year of that current contract. But he's an RFA, so the Hawks will have first control over what happens. But if he wants to get that bigger, longer term, big money deal, he's going to, want to do another huge 30-goal season like he had his first year. I can't figure it out. It's one of those things that I've criticized Colton for all season long, Kubalik's usage. I've said it. You've heard it. You guys are probably tired of me saying it. I'm tired of having to say that it's the coach's job to put players in positions to succeed. And it seems to be an epic failure when it comes to Kubalik, that he could be used so much better because it seems that he just, whatever you put him in, he produces. So why is he not getting more ice time? Why is he not playing with better line mates? Who knows? Maybe there's something we're not seeing. We've seen this in the past for whatever reason, coaches and players, Joe Quenneville, as great of coach he was, he had guys that he didn't like. Victor Stahlberg's the first guy that comes to mind, but that's not a great comparison because Kubalik's a much better player than Victor Stahlberg. But it's just for whatever reason, he would never trust certain guys. And I think Kubalik has earned that trust. He's performed everywhere he's gone. He's performed at a high level for the Blackhawks. So it's going to be an interesting season for here. We'll see how that roster shakes out between now and then. Hopefully he's top 6 in scoring goals this year. That I see no reason why he would be anywhere else unless somebody's lost their mind.
Gail?
All right, just to add on that, I don't know that Kubalik is really in the doghouse so much as Colton is just trying to get the most that he can out of every player. And unfortunately, there might be 3 other players that it works out better for them, but unfortunately, it's not exactly the right fit and usage for Kubalik. I think that's happened with him this past season. I also think it happened with Dylan Strome, even to a worse degree. I just did a player grade on him, so he's kind of in my head. But getting back to Kubalik, he was on the 3rd line. He was on the 2nd power play unit. He wasn't getting the ice time. We've talked about all this, but he was still 2nd in goals, 3rd in assists and points. And so maybe, you mentioned the roster, Greg. The roster is going to be different this year. So maybe it'll fit better that he's going to get more of an opportunity. If you remember in 2019-20, he was on the top line with Jonathan Toews, and that was his breakout year, about 30 goals, right? And we know that DeBrincat and Kane have looked good this year as a pair. So, maybe next year you're going to be looking at Kubalik and Toews on the top line and DeBrincat and Kane on the, Greg always says, don't do top line, 2nd line. But you know what I'm saying? In the top 6. So we'll see. I hope that it does pan out a little bit better for the league this season.
I do too. I mean, it's kind of frustrating because you see that the team needs scoring, and then we have an elite goal scorer, and it's like, okay, what is going on? Why aren't you? It's not like we have prospects right now that it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is so much better than he is, and he needs that playing time. I don't feel like that's really the case. So it is really frustrating. But I really hope this was just like Colton's kind of experimenting year because we had a lot of new faces, and then maybe he'll find himself back in the top 6. But I am kind of worried about it a little bit. I really hope, because he only has 1 year left on his deal, that he's not going to be used as trade bait. I really hope not. I'm kind of worried about this, to be honest with you, but I don't know.
Maybe it was just a matter of kind of spreading the wealth out a little bit. He could trust Kubalik, and he didn't want to have a bunch of rookies all together kind of thing. So
right.
And now they've got 1 more year under their belt, all these rookies. So they're not rookies anymore, and there might be better areas to utilize them.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, we hope this was just a weird kind of fluky thing for him, and hope he gets but I'm proud of him because, like you guys said, he did produce even with the limited opportunities that he got, which is awesome. So we still know he's the same Kubalik that we knew from last season, just in a different role. But it is really frustrating, and I really don't want a repeat of this next year. We need him very badly. So that kind of brings me into my next topic. I know it's kind of hard to see lots of news, but there is a story that came out this week about Kirby Dach. He spoke with Scott Powers of The Athletic about his relationship with his 18-year-old brother Colton, who is NHL draft eligible this season. He's projected to go in the second or third round this season. It's a really great article. I highly recommend Blackhawk fans for you guys to check it out. It's really cool. But basically, Colton's coach for the Saskatoon Blades was talking about the different types of player that Colton and Kirby are. He kind of described Colton as a shoot first versatile forward who has an absolute cannon of a shot and is thought to be someone who could be a 40 to 50 goal guy for the Blades, where Kirby he kind of thought of as more of a pass first center. But again, different types of players that produce differently. So I guess the Hawks have 2 second-round picks this year. So do you guys think the Hawks should consider drafting him if he's available? Gail?
First off, I'm really glad that you brought this up because it's been on my to-do list to read this article since it came out. And so I finally had a chance to read it today in preparation. And it was a nice article. So yeah, absolutely. You know, if the chance is there to have both of them to be, I think that, you know, they would love to be on the same team. And I think they would push each other and help the competition. Like you said, the pass first and the shoot first, so they could be, you know, maybe have some good chemistry, like, right? Maybe like the Sedin brothers on our hands again or something like that. But, you know, it's really fun to talk about. But obviously for that to line up and for the Blackhawks to actually draft him, you know, is a whole other story. Who knows if he'll be available when they pick. But yeah, I definitely think that that if he's there, that he would be on their radar, I'm guessing.
Greg?
I'm actually glad you brought this up too, because his name jumped out at me when NHL Central Scouting released their final list, and he had shot up to 19th among North American skaters. And prior to that, he was considered like a 4th, 5th round pick. I believe he was what they call the C prospect, and now he's the 19th, and he shot ahead guys that way. So that caught me off guard. So I was like, hey, okay, I need to start paying attention to this, and I did some research on him. Part of the reason he shot up the rankings is because he physically shot up. He's up to 6'4", same height as his brother right now. He shot up like 2 or 3 inches just between last season and this season. In the 1920 season, he had just 11 goals and 29 points in 62 games. But then this season, he matched that 11 goals with 9 assists in just 20 games in the shortened WHL season. So obviously there was an improvement there. He does have a very good shot, a much better shot than Kirby does. But as we mentioned, Kirby is not, you know, he's that get to the front of the net, set up his teammates kind of guy. He's kind of like, what one of my favorite coach speaks ever was Tyler Secura, Dylan's older brother, who was captain for the Rockford IceHogs for 2 or 3 seasons. Derek King, their head coach, used to say that about Tyler, and this could be applied to Colton. He used to say Tyler was not great at any one thing, but he was good at everything. So that's kind of the same player we got here. Scouts are a little weary on his acceleration and his explosiveness, but at 18 that could be worked on. It would be a fun story to get the Dach brothers, good PR, all that fun, you know, in between period interest stories and funny joshing interviews. That's all good. But be wary, because for every Henrik and Daniel Sedin, there's an Eric and Brett Lindros. So let's not like automatically assume they're both going to be great. Second round, I don't know. Don't draft a guy just because you have his older brother. Do it because you're high on him and he's the best player on the board. So I don't know if they're going to necessarily target him. I'm not in those scouting meetings, but it would be a fun story, and he could be an interesting prospect. And you know, everybody who complains that Stan Bowman only drafts undersized forwards, they wouldn't have anything to bitch about if you draft another 6'4" guy.
Exactly. But when I read this, to be honest, I was really kind of excited because, for one, it seems like Colton fits the mold of what Stan Bowman says he's looking for, which is size and skill. So, and to be honest, all that kind of sold me was shoot first, versatile forward. So I think that we need more of those players. So, and not just because Colton is Kirby's brother, it's kind of not even about that for me. Although I do think they could probably complement each other's game in a nice way. But I think it's more just, it seems like someone that it could actually fit right in, to be honest. But like I said, I don't know if he should be like solely on the radar, like, oh my gosh, we have to draft him. But like you said, if he's the best player available, I do think they should take him. I think that'd be really fun. And like I said, seems like he fits the mold of what the Hawks are looking for. So we'll see. That would be a fun story, I think. But so that brings me to my next topic that actually is about Kirby, but not in a kind of in a different sense. But I said that there are players on every team that are considered untouchable and expendable. So I wanted to talk about the untouchables on the Hawks, which are mostly considered to be Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Duncan Keith, and Kirby Dach. So let's make this interesting and give me a hypothetical on what could make a player like Kirby Dach expendable. Greg?
I don't think, first off, I don't think the Blackhawks are in a position where they should consider anybody untouchable, especially when you branded yourself as rebuilding. You got to listen to every kind of offer. But as far as untouchable, I think Kirby is about as close as you get just because of his age. Guys like Toews and Kane and Keith, nobody wants to see them go, but that a deal for one of those guys might make sense big picture. Dach, I don't want to trade him, but if somebody called me and was going to offer me one of those young elite defenseman, a guy like a Charlie McAvoy or a Quinn Hughes, someone along those lines, I wouldn't think twice about trading Kirby Dach for one of those guys. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, that phone call is never going to be made. Nobody's the guys, teams that have a Charlie McAvoy, a Quinn Hughes, a Cal McCarr, they don't look to trade those guys. Those guys are foundation pieces, so you have to draft those guys. So that would be the only way right now I would trade Kirby Dach is for one of those young elite defensemen who haven't even scratched the surface of their prime. But that's not going to happen.
Gail?
Yeah, every player is expendable to some extent, but you would have to really make a really good offer for Dach. I mean, he's young, he's the face of the franchise. He's shown tons of potential. He was drafted at number 3, and people were kind of surprised at that. But some of the other people, we got Alex Turcotte that was at 5, Dylan Cousins at 7, Trevor Zegras that was at 9. All of them have the good starts to their careers, but a little bit more modest than what we've seen with Dach. I think that he is the real deal, and he's what the Blackhawks need. He's a center, he's big, he's physical. So no, I wouldn't want to trade him. But if you force my hand again, it would be one of these things that's never going to happen. Okay, give me Jack Eichel for Dach, and you keep 75% of his salary for the next 5 years. I mean, that's probably not going to happen. So.
Yeah. I mean, I knew this was going to be a tough topic because it does kind of pick your brain a little bit, and and he is someone that you wouldn't want to move. But like Stan said, he was drafted to be the face of the franchise and to be our top center for the next 15 years. So, but in my brain, I always kind of held the notion that no player is untouchable at the right price. And like you guys said, for Kirby, it would have to be very like something you just cannot turn down at all. So my kind of thinking was maybe for one thing, it'd have to be a deal like Max Pacioretty and Nick Suzuki kind of thing, where it really kind of works out for both sides in weird different ways. But also my thing was, I think there has to be a top center. There would have to be a number 1 center in that package, point blank. Like to me, if it was someone like Mika Zibanejad or whatever on New York Rangers, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, I'm sorry, but I really like him a lot. And Vincent Trocheck or someone like him on the Carolina Hurricanes, that's what I kind of thought too. I'd have a hard time turning something like that down. But also there'd have to be a pretty high draft pick in there for him. Like if you give us a number 1 or something, maybe. But like I said, it'd have to be, like you guys said, something that you really cannot turn down at all. But like I said, we're here to talk about these kind of interesting hypotheticals that are interesting and pick your brain. So
especially
who knows, like I said,
off season, right?
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, since the draft is coming up, where things have happened, I don't know. Who knows? Someone could, not just the Blackhawks specifically, anyone, to be honest with you, but it's kind of fun. to play general manager. I love it. I know you guys do too. But so lastly, to kind of wrap this up, let's kind of get to the playoffs of the season. I know it's kind of a tough topic, but we're here to vent. It's a therapy session. You know, we're here to support each other too. So in your mind, who has been the hardest ex-Blackhawk to watch in the playoffs so far? Gail?
All right. Well, I could go with actually a number of names that it's really bumming me out to watch from ex-Blackhawks. But I am going to just go ahead and go, since I'm going first, I'm going to go with the obvious answer here, and say Brandon Saad. With Colorado Avalanche, you know, he's had 6 goals in 8 games. 6 goals. It's pretty awesome. And let's face it, the Avalanche is one of the favorites to win, so that's pretty exciting for him. I think he's on the second line, and you know, the whole team is just so dynamic that it's cool to see. And we knew that Saad was going to fit in and be a great fit wherever he go. You know, wherever he went, he's a power forward. He's a solid 2-way player, and you know, it sure would be. He sure could help the Blackhawks this past season. I understand that they had to unload his big contract and that it was a business decision, but that doesn't make me doesn't mean that I don't miss him.
Yes, I agree. Greg?
Well, I mean, anytime you talk about former Blackhawks, I have to bring up Teuvo Teravainen. He's my guy. I mean, that Ice Hogs jersey in the back, that's a Teravainen Ice Hogs collector's edition jersey. I mean, I've been a fan of the kid, so it always breaks my heart. It's been kind of quiet this Tampa series, but that could be said for a lot of guys in that lineup. But I also agree it's been difficult to watch Brandon Saad play. I've been a huge fan of his ever since 2013 when he first came up the first time with the Hawks. He's exactly what Colorado needs. They've got so many high-end skill guys, and then they get Saad, who's that grindy, get to the front end of net, score goals. We saw him do that with the Hawks for 2 different championship runs, and he's red hot. And he's such a good guy. It's so easy to root for him. You know, people can say what they want about contracts and production, but this is the time of year where Brandon Saad plays his best hockey, and he's doing that right now. And actually, his back probably hurts because he's kind of carrying them those last few games. He needs some of those high-end guys to help him out a little bit. So Teuvo and Saad, the scars, still got scars.
Yeah.
Did you see, I call him baby TT still, even though what is he, like 20 something now? Teravainen, I think it was him. His pass for the goal, was it last game or the game before? But it was like this, you know, no look kind of in between his legs, and you thought he was going this way, and it was actually like the puck went that way, and it was, I think, Aho or something put it away. It was beautiful.
Yeah, the thing that breaks my heart even more is that he's actually turned out to be a pretty good defensive player too, and that's something that for years while he was here, he's never going to play defense. He's too small. He's too soft. Yeah, right there. He's becoming a complete player, and it makes that trade even worse.
Yes.
Yeah, that pass through the legs was amazing. And I think he scored a goal the last game against Tampa. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little misty. I was like, come on, I miss you. Come back. This is not cool. But I'm rooting for him. I'm always so happy for him. Same with Brandon Saad, like you guys said, for all those reasons. I think we all knew he was gonna fit in Colorado like a glove. It's just amazing, and also very hurtful to know that, again, we don't have a talent like that anymore. It hurts so much. But I'm gonna kind of go off kind of the grid, and I'm gonna say Philip Deneau on the Montreal Canadiens. I was watching the game yesterday, and most of the faceoffs I saw, he won. And because we've been talking about faceoffs and stuff and how atrocious they have been for the Blackhawks, I'm like, okay, for real, like, I don't know why we traded him. It hurts so bad. I'm like, but again, really happy for him. I'm really happy to see everyone thriving, but goodness, the pain scale of what we are witnessing of all of our people thriving without us is very hard. And but
yeah, Deneau's stat line isn't looking too good. But then again, if you look at what he's done, he's shut down like all the top guys for 3 series now, or yeah. So yeah, he was one of the people I had penciled in as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be available this time. I believe he's a free agent this summer.
Yeah,
so
he is.
you know how Stan loves to right his wrongs and bring guys back, and that's one of his worst trades he ever made, for Thomas Fleischman and that bum Dale Weiss. So I would gladly take him back. If we can't get Dougie Hamilton or Seth Jones, bring me Philip Deneau.
I think he's making some money though. He'd be.
Yeah, it's all right.
Well,
We got some cap space. We
It's
could
not
make,
my money. It's not my money. Give it to him.
exactly. I think we need to get someone dynamic at this point. Just anyone. Give us
Yes,
anyone dynamic. We'll be happy with that. But okay, guys, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Blackhawks Banter. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook so you never miss an episode. We come together weekly to talk about everything Blackhawks, and also be sure to follow. You can catch all of our shows on your favorite podcast platform as well. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Our usernames are right here on the screen by our names, and check out all of our articles at thehockeywriters.com. Thank you, Greg and Gail, again for joining me. I'm Brooke LoFurno, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. And good night, guys.